Hey everybody, thanks for joining me. My name's David, and this is my channel. Today's video, very important subject. There is no outside perspective watching you. This is what this whole journey is about, is to realize in the end that it is all coming from you, all coming from within. Notice Jesus' teachings. It was all about changing you from within. Even when he moved against the Pharisees or anyone else, it was always about talking about what they were doing from within themselves. He was not an advocate of going out and fighting and trying to change the world. He was talking about changing from within. Everything is coming from within. It's like your dream. And somehow we have turned that dream that is coming from us and back to us in the form of a reflection. We have turned that mirror reflection, turned that dream into our enemy, and now it becomes a nightmare. So how do we unravel this mystery, this idea of this outside world that surely seems to exist, but from its very existence causes us pain and suffering? Why? Simply because there is a perspective, a watcher that seems to watch us and judge us and talk about us and can hurt us, can take away from us. You see, you have to kind of look at what the outside world represents. On the other side, it represents watching us, making sure we're good, or making sure we're doing it right, or special. Look how great you are, Dave. You're doing such a great job. Or we go to in order to find love and appreciation. That seems to not work out for us because you can't rely on anybody out there because they're in their own dream too. So the more you recognize and you unravel the blocks, the building blocks that we have used to put this outside world together, and we realize it's not working, that outside perspective, looking back at us, is the only thing that's truly causing all of our problems. Because now we have someone to impress. We have something to worry about, something to fear, something to make happy. Does that make sense? You kind of have to look at that. That outside perspective, it's tough. And you can be sure that's what's pushing against you. That's what the form of all separation is your outside perspective looking back at you in the form of judgment. And the more you recognize that we are consistently on edge, worrying about what the outside thinks of us on a regular basis. But what if we learned that it's not true, that there is no outside looking back at us? So let's unravel this a little bit together today. If you take where you are right now and you look around, maybe I can look at that picture, or I can, look at my cup here, or I can look at my hand, even my hand, my ring, whatever it is. Can you take a second and feel how what you're looking at has a vision on you? In other words, there's a perspective looking back at you. Even if it's an inanimate object, you'll feel it. This cup is kind of looking back at me. This hand is kind of looking back at me somehow. That way you can feel this outside perspective that you have created. And the more you recognize that you have created it, not just from people, but from everything. The sun, or maybe the birds, or even the weather, definitely the body. This feeling of this outside perspective looking back at you, and that has the ability to hurt you. Even the things we look at in our world and say, I don't really like that, has a feeling like it's pushing against us. Because you cannot dislike something without it disliking you. It's a mirror. Do you see? If you dislike something, it dislikes you. It's just kind of, you're going to feel that dislike bounce back at you. And if you're confused about something, you're going to feel that confusion back at you. And the more you recognize this kind of rebound feeling of this energy, just like light shining on a mirror coming back at you, you'll see that that judgment is coming from you and not from an outside presence or entity. Does that make sense? And I recommend taking a second and doing that. If you dislike something or if you don't like it, watch it feel like it's not liking you. If you don't like your shoulder and you say, man, I hate that you're hurting, you can feel it pushing against you. Now, we think it's the pain that's pushing against you, but I assure you it's not. It's the push against it, reflecting back at you in the form of that light on the mirror coming back, because you cannot form an opinion or meaning about anything in this world without it coming back to you in the same meaning, because it's a mirror. That's why the outside doesn't exist. It's a mirror reflection. So as we start understanding this, and once again, don't take my word for it, go look for it. Go see if you can find those eyes looking back at you. And I recommend, just in your world around you, in the trees or maybe in the trees or in nature, you feel this beautiful presence looking back at you, perhaps. Still feels like it's outside of you. Oh, nature, so beautiful, so wonderful. I love being around nature. You see, but this right here, I don't like when the streets are dirty. I feel like, it's not fun. And you'll start seeing that you have created these perspectives, and there are many of them, that are from the outside looking back at you, like the fourth wall in a movie, right? You watch a movie, it looks real, but then you realize, oh, none of it's real. They're all just playing the characters. You see, none of it is true. And it's the same thing for you, what you have created outside of you. They're all playing characters, ideas that you have created, and they're all reflecting it back to you. And it seems like it's coming from an outside source, even though it's not coming from the outside source. It's coming from within you. This is why Jesus said, love thy enemy. You see, love yourself, love your interpretation. This is why he said the kingdom of God, which is that one perspective, one perception that is just yours, needs to be healed, because it has become many, many, many outside perceptions. And those outside perceptions that you hold about yourself from an outside perspective that is not real, it doesn't really exist, is pushing against what you perceive yourself to be. Can you feel that? And now the more perspectives and more perceptions you create outside of you looking back, you only have one, at least it feels like we only have one now. So we have plenty of them pushing against us. Maybe it's my body's perception of me, or maybe it's my business's perception of me, or my client's perception of me. You see, or maybe you guys' perception of me. Do you see? And now all these perceptions are pushing back at us. And it feels like a lot of pressure, doesn't it? Of course it does. But how wonderful is it to realize that those perceptions are also you. And you can just let them go, just like a wisp of the wind. They're not real. And they're in your mind in the form of mind activity, because those perceptions come to us in the form of our mind, boom, 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 reminding us as we walk around the world. But the more you hone in on them, you're going to feel they are mere reflections. They're just reflecting back to you, showing perceptions that are coming from within. So that ego part of us has taken the whole part of us, the whole perception of us, and split it into many, many, many different perceptions. Kind of like one light shining on a diamond, and it hits in many different ways. And then each one is being reflected back to us. And they all seem like separate sources. And that's what we're experiencing. All these separate sources, all these eyes watching us, looking at us, observing us, judging us. All coming from within. All coming from within us, projected out, and then coming back in the form of many, many, many different sources. Each one holding their own insistence of why we are the way we are, and so forth and so on. So now we have all these perceptions that don't match. They have no center, do they? Now this can be construed in Tai Chi. I have my wrist and my elbow and my shoulder and my head and my neck and my legs, and they're all kind of filled up, like I was saying in the last video, with their own insistence of who they are. They hold their own perception. You see, separation. So now they can't come together. And they can't come together simply because they don't have a center point. So in Tai Chi, one of the things we have to do is sync our mind to the Dantian, find a center, so that way everything can move around this center. As everything moves around the center, every perception that is full then becomes empty. As it becomes empty, then the other side fills it up. You see? So we hold a perception, we fill ourselves up, and then we empty that perception, and Source fills it back up with a new idea of expansion, so to speak, and it comes from within. Then it extends out into the world and comes back in the form of a physical reflection in order for us to enjoy it. It's a really beautiful process when it's one perspective of love. Love thy neighbor as you love yourself, Jesus said. Love your source, love your perception, your oneness, your one whole perceiving aspect of your being with all of your might. Therefore, you will look out into the world and see it as yourself. Now we have one perception. I am enjoying you. I am enjoying you. I am loving you. I am loving you. I am appreciating you. I am appreciating you. And then it bounces back in the form of a reflection, and they will all merge together into one synchronicity because they're coming from one place. Does that make sense? Now that's our natural state. And then, now this is where it gets interesting, is believe it or not, because we know there are other souls out there, and I'm sure I'll get those questions. There are other souls with their own perspective. Now, the natural state of all of us, we are one mind, one Christ. Let the mind that was in Jesus be in you, right? Let it be in you as it was in him. We all have one mind, the mind of Christ, the mind of God. Mind being this collection, this oneness that we all share, not this body, but the mind. And that mind of God is in communication with all of itself. So that means that our broader perspective is in communication with all of creation. If you watch near-death experiences, they talk about this a lot, how the trees can talk to them and they feel the experience of the grass, loving them and appreciating them. See, because we now know that we're all in connection with ourselves, you would see why we love each other as ourselves. And there is no pushing against. There's only love and appreciation for everything as ourself. And that's how your higher perspective, your inner being, sees all of creation as a beautiful mirror reflection of itself. And as it loves its brothers and sisters as itself with perfect love and innocence, then it receives it back. And then we become one light, lighting all of each other up. You see, and then this physical world becomes a reflection, a playground for all of that beauty and fun and joy. And as you love a tree as yourself, it reflects back as this beautiful, loving part of who you are, of all that is. And of course, we don't see it as a separate self. We see ourselves as one, and we give all of that over to our source. As Jesus said, be humble, be humility, have humility in your life. So the only thing that stops us from living in this way is that outside push. But it's not real. And the more we let go of that outside and we surrender inside, you'll see one has to replace the other. Outside perception, inside truth and vision. So this is a bigger subject, of course, but I want you, if you feel inclined, to think about this idea, to look outside and see how many perspectives do you have going of the outside looking back at you. And is it possible to recognize that those perceptions don't match what's coming from you? They feel like they're pushing against each other. So therefore you can let them go. And you can start over at any given point. I am one perception. And I am going to enjoy this, and I'm going to love this, and I'm going to appreciate this, and I'm going to appreciate this. And just start a synchronicity a little bit at a time throughout your day, you see, of one I am perspective. And anytime those other perspectives come, just ignore them, let them go. That's what we call the outside mind pushing in against you. Just let it go and move back into this one perspective, I am. Now, remember, in order to do this, you have to let go of the past. Just be in the moment. I am going to find something positive in this. I'm going to find something positive in this. I'm going to find something positive in this. Can you see now why that positivity is so important? If you just find something positive, regardless of how it shoots back at you, oh, no, just no, I'm going to find something positive. I'm going to find something positive, find something positive. You will see this is how you align with your source. You align with your source through finding one perspective of positivity in all things in your experience as much as possible. And then it will reflect back to you in the form of one breathing together idea or synchronicity of your life that will work and flow for you. And the more you do this on this side, the more you will not believe the other side. You will let go of it. And once again, start over every day. I'm going to find something positive. I'm going to allow this. Allowing is another thing. See, it's only one. I'm going to find something positive. I'm going to allow it. I'm going to find something positive and I'm going to allow. You see? And you create one perception, and your source is going to agree with that. Allowing and positive, I assure you, your source will agree, and you will align with it. And now you will become one perception coming back, going out, coming back, going out, coming back. And anything that was once outside will just disappear. Take this with you. As always, it is up to you to receive what you wish to receive. And hit the like button if it's speaking to you. Subscribe. Keep the comments coming. And as always, my unconditional love and appreciation to you.